Hey guys, what is up? I am back. It's been a second since I've made a video, but I'm back. And today we are talking about Maya Angelou, and I hope that's how you say her last name, not Angelo. Angelou, I'm not sure. I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. Now Maya Angelou is a name that many have probably heard, and if you're like me, you don't know why you've heard it. And even after reading this book, I'm not entirely sure. And it's like this entire book is about her. But I don't know why or how she's become such like a prevalent thing. Like best buddies with Oprah, and maybe it's just because she is an author and like has a unique experience that she had the courage to share. But yeah, it's very interesting. So this book, and I'm going to make this one, and I know I say this every time, kind of brief. This book, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, is 289 pages long, and let me tell you when it was published. And I just learned the other day, actually, that Maya Angelou she died. I think maybe like 10 years ago? Okay, maybe that's not true. Maybe 2018. I don't know. But this was first published in 1969, which is kind of wild to think about. And yeah, basically it is this, and look at how atrocious that book cover is. That is the worst book cover I've ever seen in my life. The book is a lot better than the cover in this case, so rest assured. This book is written by Maya Angelou about her life, beginning, as far back as she can remember up to, and she just highlights the important points or things that she thinks that are important throughout her life, which is really cool. And so I'm just going to read a couple excerpts. I thought that this book was interesting. The one thing that I will say about this is obviously Maya and I are very different in a lot of ways. And so I think the one thing is that I had a hard time connecting with Maya and the things that she went through and like the struggles that she faced. Not to say that I didn't understand or like I didn't have sympathy for the things that she went through, but I don't know if I was able to relate to her on that same level. So, oh my gosh, sorry, something fell over there. And I know so many people out there can relate to her story, and relate to her as a person. I just can't as deeply. And so take that for what it's worth during this review. I enjoyed the book. I did enjoy the book. I did not regret reading this book. I actually read this book for a book club. And me actually meeting with the book club and talking about the story of Maya Angelou and, all the things she's went through and her writing style and things like that helped me appreciate the book more than if I had just read it on my own. So, yeah, I liked it. I wouldn't say that it's my favorite read of all time, but it's very, very good. So I'd recommend it. I would recommend it. That's it. Okay, let me read you a couple of excerpts because she has some good things to say. On page 4, if growing up is painful for the southern black girl, being aware of her displacement is the rust on the razor that threatens the throat. Should I expound on that? I don't feel like I need to, but I remember never believing that whites were really real. And 2, with this book, it is just a lot of her experiences, one after another. And I feel like Maya didn't let us really sit with her experience very much, because it just went from chapter. It just moved swiftly to the next thing. It felt like it didn't really let us like sit with what we had just read and because she didn't really spin it or analyze it for us. She just kind of says it and then moves on to the next. And so I wish, and this is just for me, I wish that she had given us a little bit a little bit more time to digest the stories that she was throwing out. Everything she says is very matter of fact. You know, it's like, this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened, instead of it being like, I don't know. Does that make sense? Because there are some really cool stories in here. I don't feel like I completely was able to wrap my head around it before we moved on to the next one. So that is one thing that I will say. And she talks about things that are very sensitive to her. She talks about how she was raped, and how that moment in her life was very significant in finding out who it was. Like, it's almost a moment of self-discovery, in like the most horrible way. And I think because that happens here on page 74, and there's this much left, and so I think this book too is able to show that, yes, that awful, horrible, nasty thing, and she was threatened, like, if you ever tell anybody, I'm gonna have to kill your brother. And I think Maya's story is more than just like a list of vignettes. It's, this happened, and so because of that, so many good things came of it, even though that it was so awful and that at that time, it in the end, in such a sick way, led her to be what she is, you know, led her to have the story to tell, which is very interesting to think about. This other excerpt says, I find it interesting that the meanest life, the poorest existence, is attributed to God's will. But as human beings become more affluent, as their living standard and style begin to ascend the material scale, God descends the scale of responsibility at a commensurate speed. So that's very interesting. People whose history and future were threatened each day by extinction considered that it was only by divine intervention that they were able to live at all. And then she says, you know, as people gain status and wealth, God slips on the list of reasons why. You know, it's, I made this life for me, and that's why I'm successful. My favorite part of the entire book is when she recounts when she goes to the dentist. And she had this horrible toothache for so long. She goes to the dentist and she's with her mom, and she retells it one way, and there's so much action, and there's so much, you know, like the mom stood up to the white people and said this and did this, and it was amazing, and like I just stood there and I was in awe. And we find out that that's not really how it happened. That's just the way that she tells it, because she says, I much preferred my version. And I prefer it too. I thought it was really awesome. Page 193. If you have the book, like, I'd literally go back and reread it, because that's just such a good part of the story. All knowledge is spendable currency depending on the market. And I really like this one. I highlighted this one in yellow. Put your whole heart into everything you do and pray, then you can wait. God helps those who help themselves. Few, if any, survive their teens. Most surrender to the vague but murderous pressure of adult conformity. Anyway, that's kind of the notes that I had. I mean, Maya is just a fascinating person, and now I'm glad that I was able to read this. I think this is her most famous book that she has published. I know she has many others, and she also did poetry, but I'd say that this is a great, if you're trying to get into Maya Angelou, this is a great one to start with. I enjoyed, so 2 thumbs up from Carson Reads. Let me know if you've read this book, what effect it had on you, and let me know what other books I should read. Feel free to leave a comment, give me a follow, give me a subscribe. I mean, you don't have to, never, but This has been Carson Reads. It's called Carson Reads because I'm Carson and I read. And ciao. I'll see you next time. I wish I knew what the next book was. I think it's The Hobbit. We'll see. Bye.